Hey folks, welcome to the channel, and in this case, learning some valuable lessons from UFC 291. Usually I do videos analyzing events that are either police body cams or security cameras, but there's also something to be learned in cases like this where you have professional fighters that are going after one another, especially when they do things that are outside those rules that they have of fighting. As always, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, consider doing so. More than welcome. I cover a lot of these things in terms of self-defense and street survival skills for the economic aspect of preparedness, surviving the economic collapse, both available in the links there below. So this is one of those things where the lesson is on a different level. Usually you have the first level and that second level. That first level usually includes people that think, oh, this is all useless. Mixed martial arts, that's a sport. I want to learn how to fight for real, like combat in the streets with no rules. That's why I train with the secret Israeli special forces techniques. We don't do any of that sport fighting. No, us killers and ninjas, we use these secret techniques which you cannot spar because they're so deadly. Well, let me explain to you. You will get your ass kicked by someone that is an amateur boxing with 6 months under his belt. If you don't actually spar, if you don't actually fight against someone that is actually trying to knock you down, then you have no damn idea. You have no idea how far you are from having any knowledge whatsoever of what it's like to get punched in the face. If you haven't been punched in the face with one of these ever, you have no damn idea, no clue whatsoever. And the first time that happens, your world will change completely, okay? And here's where a lot of these, but we use these deadly techniques that you cannot spar with because they're just too dangerous. It's just too deadly. Only us special forces badasses can use them. Well, there's a bunch of special forces out there that will get their ass kicked all day long, right? Just being special forces or tactical units that are more advanced in the way in which they are deployed or their way of using firearms does not mean that they're experts at hand-to-hand combat, let alone mixed martial arts, okay? There's levels to these things. Having said that, while anyone that thinks that just kicking people in the testicles and eye gouging or fish hooking or doing dirty things will allow them to beat a professional fighter, that is that first level of delusion. There is another level where, yes, some of these things can be quite dangerous, and that's what this video is about. Look, I cannot play this because of copyright from UFC. They will pull the video immediately, but there is an image here that's quite clear. You have Tony Ferguson. Again, Tony Ferguson is the white guy with the black trunks. Bobby Green is the black guy with the red trunks. And in this image, it is not that clear. In this image, you see what happened. And let me explain this for you. Bobby Green was just jabbing away. He was actually losing the fight. He was jabbing, and one of those was like that, right? He did this. He just opened his hands intentionally so and shoved his fingers into the eyes of Tony Ferguson. That is because in mixed martial in UFC, you use these UFC gloves that have those fingers open. You cannot do that in boxing. In boxing, with a boxing glove like this, no, forget about it. You can't shove your. There's little dirty things you can do in boxing as well. Typical thing would be rabbit punching. Yeah, you're clinching and you just go like that with the heel of your hand. You just hit the guy on the back of the head, and that damages you a lot. It actually can knock out someone. So that's why sometimes they are not only warned, but they do it like lightly, because if you do it too hard, you end up with a guy on the floor and you get immediately disqualified, which, by the way, it's something they should look into, because I believe he didn't even lose points over this. I mean, we're not animals. If you're doing this, you should at the very least lose points. If you do it again, disqualified. What is this? You're just bringing a knife to a UFC fight. You can't just do anything. The rules are there. I mean, it's dangerous enough as it is, so as to pull this kind of crap. But my point is, you can do a lot of damage by doing this sort of thing. So the guy is jabbing, and all of a sudden he goes open hand, fingers inside your eyes. You cannot just, it's not just about touching the eyes. You can scratch, you can just burst an eye with this, right? With this sort of thing, with that force into the eye, I mean, it could even scratch, it could even leave an infection that evolves into the guy losing his eye. I mean, you can leave him blind immediately by doing that. Now, in this case, Ferguson was winning the fight. After this, he just couldn't fight the same way. It was painfully obvious. The guy used a dirty trick to end up winning a fight, right? And he had like 5 minutes to recover. He used but the guy is, especially Tony Ferguson is one of these tough guys that thinks, oh, I want to go back into it. I want to, and it's just not the same because the guy is compromised in one of his eyes. He will not fight the same way. You're just not the same person. But to the point of the video, yes, on that other level, when you know how to fight, you can use some of these things to your advantage very effectively. So the lesson here is, if you have, no matter what kind of level of expertise or knowledge you have in any martial arts discipline, there are things that can be done that are outside of those rules in which you practice the sport, of the combat sport, that can be very effective. If you're, and this is something I actually try to teach my son. My son, he does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I cannot beat my son in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu ever, right? We can do this 10 times out of 10. I'll lose against him because he's a 20-year-old that is super fit and is competing, is practicing, and he's actually good at it. So yeah, forget about it. But every once in a while, when we're doing these things, I just do something like a fish hook. Go for his eyes, or at least make him realize that there's things that, even though you don't have to deal with them in the gym or in the sport, if it comes down to a fight, yeah, someone grabbing you in your testicles, someone putting a finger in your eye and pulling, trying to rip your face off, these things will happen in a fight, in a street fight. And if you're just too one-sided in terms of, I do the same thing in the street as I do in the gym, or in competition, you may leave yourself open to some serious damage. And I'm not even talking about someone just pulling one of these things and stabbing you, no matter who you are. You can even be Mike Tyson. As you saw that little 14-year-old Russian, even if Mike Tyson gets stabbed once in the chest, in the heart, you're done. Doesn't matter who you are. The same goes for any of these street fights where you just don't know who you're dealing with. You don't know that this other person may have nothing to lose. Bring out a gun, bring out a knife. You may be preparing yourself to deal with someone, and all of a sudden, one of his friends that you didn't even know of smashes a bottle in the back of your head, right? Or you may even, bring down a guy and choke him out, and then you're leaving the bar, and the guy was just bitter, angry, crazy, and he runs you over with his fucking car. This is the kind of thing that I want you guys to get into your head, no matter how good or bad you are in terms of defending yourself, in terms of using guns, knives, hands. Don't underestimate how evil and crazy people are out there, because you will be surprised. Guys, it's going to be all for now. See you in our next video. Take care.